Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is kind of a sad one because I'm kind of closing a chapter in my life, my Pretty Pregnant series, and this is the last video that I'm filming as far as pregnancy goes and all of that. So yeah, it was just like such a big part of my life. I never realized how long pregnancy is. Like, you just tell yourself like, oh yeah, 9 months, but it's pretty close to a year, and you have this baby inside you, and everything is kind of about being pregnant, from the clothes you're wearing to the nutrition you're eating, and it's really easy to just start living this new life, and then you have the baby and now you're entering a new chapter. So yeah, I just wanted to close the series with my birth story. So if you actually want to see me give birth and go to the hospital and labor at home and all of that, I'll leave that video down below, but I couldn't really share like actually what was happening in the moment. Yeah, there was like a lot going on, and a lot of you guys requested just a sit down video, you know, grab a cup of coffee, grab a snack. I have this sparkling water, Mountain Valley blackberry pomegranate. That's what I'm drinking. Delicious. Oh, okay, so I kind of was thinking, like, where do I start this video? Like, there's just so much to share. So the first thing I want to say is that I had a really positive birth, and I had the birth that I manifested. I know that that's not always the case, and people will say, you know, it didn't go according to plan, this and that. I have to say my birth pretty much went exactly how I pictured it in my head. But before we talk about all the positive, I do want to say that it wasn't like my entire experience was amazing. So I can't think of the name right now, but I had that condition of when you have morning sickness your entire pregnancy. I found out I was pregnant at, I think, 5 weeks. We'll have to go back and watch the videos. Literally, I have all of this documented if you want to just go through and watch Pretty Pregnant, my entire pregnancy series. But I found out I was pregnant, and literally a week later the morning sickness started. In the beginning it was just like throwing up here and there and this and that, and then it came on really strong and pretty much lasted my entire pregnancy. I was so sick that I got black eyes from aggressively throwing up and like leaning over the toilet. Hey guys, so we just got back from the doctor. I'm back in bed because I'm nauseous. But the good news is the black eye is just from throwing up. I guess that's not like good news, but you know what I mean? It's not like something bad happened. My husband rushed me to the emergency room. He's like, this is not normal. She has black eyes from throwing up. There were other times that I threw up literally everything in my stomach, that I actually would throw up blood. Yeah, so TMI. So I just want to say, for anybody that is like, oh my god, she had this perfect birth, and you know, when it went all to plan and exactly how she wanted, and now I feel bad that mine didn't, or this and that. Just know that for 9 months it was rough for me. There is medication you can take for morning sickness and all that, but I chose not to. I just felt there's not enough research on it, and everybody should do what feels right for them. For somebody else, that might be the right decision, and if that's the case, do it. For me, I live a holistic lifestyle, and I try not to have medications when I don't need them. I don't take Advil for a headache or Tylenol or anything like that. I try to do things the natural way, just because I was brought up holistic. So since I was a kid, my mom and dad have taught me remedies when I have a sore throat or UTI or anything like that. They taught me how to cure it at home. So I chose not to take the medication, but there were days, guys, that I felt pretty close and was walking around with basically 2 black eyes. I was just like, wow, like this can't get any worse. Some people will experience postpartum depression after they have their baby, or baby blues. I actually experienced baby blues while I was pregnant, especially in the beginning, the first and beginning of 2nd trimester. The reason was I was sick every single day, especially in the beginning when I couldn't tell people I was pregnant, and they'd be like, want to hang out or want to do things. I just felt like I was just neglecting people in my life. And I was just so scared to tell anybody I was pregnant. Like, I didn't have a reason to be scared. I had a low risk pregnancy and all that, but I was just still like, no, I want to wait until the 12-week mark, or maybe it was 14, that was my goal. But I ended up making a video and telling you guys at 10 weeks. Even though my husband is amazing, you guys see the way he takes care of me and everything, but he couldn't understand what I was going through. It was just really lonely in the beginning because my husband would leave for work, and some days he'd stay home with me, but then some days he'd have to go into the office. This was before COVID. I got pregnant right like in the beginning. Yeah, it was just really lonely, and people would be like, aren't you so excited for the baby? Oh my god. Like, people that did know, and I'd be like, yeah. And I feel so guilty now for saying that because I'm literally obsessed with my daughter and cry looking at her. But I did experience baby blues in the beginning, and just like 1 minute I had my life, and then the next minute it was like it basically felt like I had the flu every single day for months. months. But when it actually goes on for months, you start to lose hope. After I kept getting a black eye, I eventually was like, okay, I need to find another remedy. I need to find something that is going to work, because this is not going to work. This is not healthy. Everything I'm consuming is now going in the toilet. How am I going to take care of my baby? I was so worried about her health because I wasn't keeping anything down. So I was following Shay Mitchell during her pregnancy and everything, and she mentioned this clinic that she was going to. So I called them and I told them what was going on, and they were like, come in immediately. They actually saw me that day, and I got acupuncture done. It's been a rough morning and night. I have not stopped throwing up, so I don't really sleep. I just wake up and throw up, and it's really hard. It gets like depressing, like it makes me feel sad, and I can't even like look forward to anything because I'm just worried about when I'm gonna throw up next. It's like consuming my life right now. I actually just called and made an appointment to get acupuncture done. Place in Los Angeles, they specialize in pregnancy and all of that. So they told me that there's acupuncture you can do in certain areas that will help morning sickness. It was so funny because they were so real with me too. They were like, this is either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't work, we don't want to take your money and keep telling you it might work. It's either going to work or it's not. So I got the acupuncture done, and a week later, the morning sickness went away, and it went away for the rest of my second trimester, which was amazing. And that's when I was having so much fun filming for you guys, and everything got really good. And then in my third trimester, it did come back, but not as bad as the first. So that's just a little background story before we get into my amazing birth. And one of the things I just want to say is that during the whole time I was sick, I always try to find the positive and try to find the light at the end of the tunnel. And so one of the things I would tell myself is, Sam, you got this, because birth is going to be so amazing. You're going through all this pain now because birth is going to be easy for you. It's going to be amazing for you, and you're a warrior. That's just what I kept telling myself, sort of like an affirmation and manifesting. And I'm the law of attraction queen. If I can try to attract it, then I will. So I just told myself that every single day, especially when I saw myself slipping into sort of a sadness and having some pregnancy blues. I would tell myself it's going to get better. So that's my background story. Now we'll fast forward to 36 weeks pregnant. They started checking to see if I was dilated, and I was at 0. I remember walking in thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be like 1 probably, and I was at 0. 37 weeks, 0. 38 weeks, 0. 39 weeks, 0. And I was just like, oh my god. So since I started approaching my due date, so this was Thursday and my due date was Tuesday, so I pretty much had the weekend, and then Tuesday was my due date, and I was going to be 40 weeks. And my doctor said on Tuesday we're going to start talking about inducing. And I did not want to be induced. If we talk about my birth plan, I wanted a vaginal birth. I wanted to push her out, and I did not want a C-section, and I did not want to be induced. 2 things that were really important to me in my birth plan were pushing her out and it just happening spontaneously, just going into spontaneous labor and just having that moment like you see in the movies. Like, I don't know why that was so important to me, but it was. I just did not want to be induced. When I say birth plan, what I mean is birth preferences. Like, there's so many people that will tell you, don't have a birth plan, nothing goes according to plan. I don't really agree with that, because the minute you get to the hospital, they ask you, like my nurse literally asked me, hey, what's your birth plan? We're gonna write it on the eraser board. I actually forgot my printout version, and I just read it to her, and she's like, okay, sounds good. Basically ask you what your birth plan is, and I think it's important to have one. Even though things might not go according to plan, if you look at it like a birth preference, then I think you're not setting yourself up for failure. You're not getting yourself excited and holding on to one idea. The other thing is, if you guys are following my stories throughout this whole journey, my doctor thought I might need a C-section, and I became okay with the idea of needing a C-section. Even though I wanted a vaginal birth, I was okay with the idea that she needs to come out safely, and however that might have to happen is what I will be okay to do. It's Thursday, and I know on Sunday I'm turning 40 weeks, and I just start saying to myself, okay, I don't want to be induced. I want to try to avoid that if I can. So I think she's going to come this weekend, because I started feeling, I don't want to say Braxton Hicks, but I started feeling some contractions, but nothing super painful, kind of like period cramps, and they would just come in and out beginning of the day and then at night. You know, it wasn't anything crazy. But I had this weird feeling that it was my last week at home with just me and my husband and the dogs. I just had this weird feeling she was coming on the weekend. So I started emailing work people and family and everything, and I was just like, I'm gonna be unavailable this weekend. I think I'm going to be giving birth. And people were asking me, oh, are you being induced or this or that? And I was like, no, I just think this weekend is when it's happening. And I really think that that was my mother's intuition. I just really knew she was coming that weekend, even though there was no signs or anything. I actually got this on camera, but a week before, I lost my mucus plug, so I thought. There was mucus in the toilet. You guys saw in the video, Jared was like analyzing it, like, oh my God, so embarrassing. Turns out I just lost a piece of it, which is normal. You can lose your mucus plug in full all at once. You can lose it gradually, but it was literally just this big. From the photos we looked at online, yes, we Google image, what does a mucus plug look like? Because first time parents over here. It seemed kind of small compared to what other people had. So Friday morning, woke up, peed. All of a sudden, I saw blood in the toilet. Like bloody show is what it's called. And I remember reading that on my app. I was using a pregnancy app the entire time that would tell me things to look for and just things to expect. It's the app What to Expect When Expecting. So I wake up, I wipe, and I always would check when I would wipe just to be sure. You know, I was looking for the mucus plug, or I mean, at this point I already thought I lost the mucus plug, but I was looking for blood or something because that can indicate that you are in early labor. So I wipe and I'm like half asleep, and usually it's just nothing on the toilet paper. This time I looked and there was some spotting, just a tiny bit. And I say to my husband, oh my God, come look. Like, are you seeing this or am I imagining this? Because I literally was so tired. It was like 4:30 a.m. pee. Like, just third trimester life, you wake up every hour to pee. Ah! So he comes and looks and he's like, oh my gosh. He calls my doctor and he asks him if this is normal, and he says yes. And we're like, well, do we go to the hospital? We're like all excited. And he's like, no, not yet. We're like, okay. So here I am, I wipe, there's spotting, but I already know because I was just checked a couple days ago, I'm 0 centimeters dilated and I really don't have any strong contractions. Now this is where I'm not sure if I should like share every detail. I don't want to like gross people out, but then at the same time, I want this to be real and raw and my birth story, and maybe it can help people that are pregnant watching this and know what to look for. But after I saw the spotting, I decided I wanted to take a shower, and so I was just washing my body and I just felt something hanging from me. And I call my husband and I'm like, and I like touch there and I feel something. And I'm like, oh my God, Jared, is something hanging from me? And he looks and it's about this long and it looks like an umbilical cord. I'm like, what the hell? He gets the mirror to show me while I'm standing in the shower. The shower's on, it's like, shh. And it's like the one time you want complete quiet and you just want to like know what the hell's going on. The dogs come running in. There's just chaos going on in my bathroom. And my husband's like, oh, and I'm like, what? And he's got the mirror. And then I'm like, ah, what the hell is that? And I'm like, literally like, is that the umbilical cord? Like, I didn't know what it was because it was pretty long and it was just hanging from me. It was not falling out. So I get the shower, I have the kind of head that can come off, or like, you know, washing down there, and it's not coming off. And I'm like, what the hell is hanging from me? And my husband looks it up and it's the real deal mucus plug. The other thing I lost was just a piece of it. This thing was the real deal, and let me say, after it came out, eventually, I was just really showering for it to finally come out. I was afraid to pull it. My husband calls my doctor again. He literally was probably so annoyed with us by now, but he calls him again and he's basically like, oh yeah, she could just like wipe and pull it out, it's fine. And it just felt too weird, like it felt heavy. I just didn't know, and I was just like, no, I just wanted to fall out. Like, I just wanted to fall out. I shower, it eventually falls out. And that was pretty much what kickstarted my labor. Immediately after losing it, I got out of the shower, I felt a contraction. Little girl, Violet Everly, was like, hey mom, I'm coming out. I had the whole day planned actually. So did my husband. He was still working, still doing things. So was I. I was still planning on filming videos. And the whole day we said, we're not doing a single thing except timing contractions and just relaxing. So I remember I just got into comfy clothes and I was just walking around the pool, and I remember that night I just had crazy contractions all day, and at night it hurt so bad, and my husband was timing them. The second thing to note is this was part of my birth plan. I wanted to labor at home as long as possible. I wanted to stay at home and just shoot to the hospital pretty much at the last minute. That was my birth plan. The reason being is because, like I said before, I like to live a more holistic lifestyle. I didn't want IVs. I didn't want medication. I didn't want painkillers at this point yet. I just didn't want anything. I wanted to just be home where I'm comfortable. I wanted the earthy experience. I sat outside with nature when I would feel contractions. I got in my tub when I would feel contractions. I did the things. I did everything. And I feel like this is where people might disagree, or they, you know, have different opinions, but at the end of the day, it's like everyone's birth experience and birth plan or birth preference, it's all personal to them, what they want to do. And my mom told me, I remember when I told her, hey, I want to labor at home, she was like, that was always my plan with you guys, me and my siblings, but it's really hard to do because you just want to make sure everything's okay. It's hard to labor at home because you just want to get to the hospital and know, like, am I dilated? Am I going to have the baby right this minute? And yeah, so it's really came down to intuition that I knew she wasn't coming Friday. The pain was bad, but it wasn't unbearable. And I wanted to go to the hospital when the pain was unbearable. I guess because I'm a weirdo and I don't know why I wanted to put myself through that. But that's what I wanted to do. So that was pretty much my Friday. And we just looked at each other, me and my husband, we knew it. We're like, this is our last Friday, just the two of us. So we made dinner, we stayed home. I walked around the pool. I held on to trees when I was having contractions. I held on to the pole outside in our yard. I watched the stars and the moon, and I just had my husband lit all the tiki lights out there, and I just had a nice experience laboring at home Friday night. Then Saturday morning came. Same thing happened. I pee and there's blood. This time it was like 3:45, so my husband calls the doctor again, and he pretty much says, this is all my labor video, by the way, but he pretty much says, it's fine. It's okay. Maybe she's in early labor, but it's okay. Saturday was the most painful day of my life. Contractions they're rough. They're really rough. And especially because I knew I was 0 centimeters dilated, I could just feel myself that I was dilating quickly, that I just knew. I knew Saturday at some point I was going to the hospital. I just knew it, and it was so painful. Contraction comes on and then it goes away. So then you have like a break, and then it comes on and then it goes away. So when it would come on, it would come on really strongly. We could just be having a conversation like this, and then I'd be like, oh, Jared, make it stop. Like, oh my God, no, like I don't want this to happen. And that just kind of made it worse. Like I would freak out, I would panic, I would get anxiety. So what I started doing was, my husband actually looked up some positions, so I would get on all fours. Again, this is in my labor and delivery video. But I was just doing so much, and I was trying to imagine a really good time in my life. So I was picturing us, this time last year we were in Hawaii, and it was just the best. I actually got engaged, and it was just the best trip of my life. Just amazing, perfect, like literally a fairy tale trip. And I was imagining that time when the contractions would come on really strong. I was just picturing us in Hawaii and being carefree, and I would just lay there and just work through the pain. I would just sit there like, okay, and I would breathe through the pain. My husband was holding up my stomach. We learned this in like a midwife video, and I was just working through the pain. There was so many hours I wanted to go to the hospital. First at 9 a.m., then at lunchtime. But remember, it was part of my birth plan, my birth preference, to go when I'm in excruciating amount of pain. So I remember I was Insta-storing. I was like, guys, I don't know if I'm having real contractions or Braxton Hicks. Like, I did not know what to expect, because I guess I have a higher pain tolerance than I thought that I did. Because when I finally did go to the hospital, they were like, you did this all at home? And I was like, yeah, and like I just didn't know. The other thing is my husband was timing them, and they weren't exactly regular, I think he was saying, and I was having no back pain. And damn him with the back pain. He was like, well, if you're not feeling it in your back, it's probably not happening yet, and they're just gonna send us home at the hospital. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not feeling it in my back. And I have to say, for all of the contractions and everything, I never back labored. I never had pain in my back. So keep that in mind, that you could just have pain in the lower stomach and you don't have to have back back pain to be going into labor. I didn't go into the hospital until 12, until midnight on Saturday, and I can't believe that I did that. I just stayed home and labored at home. My husband took photos and videos, and looking back, I was like, what are you doing? Like, I look crazy, and I had my hair crazy, and I was in his clothes most of the time. But I remember when I got into our tub, we kind of made it like a spa experience, and we turned off the lights. This was Saturday evening, and I was just laying in there with my boobs out. I felt like all hunched, and I felt very primal, guys. Like, I felt very primal, let's just say that. And I had my big belly, and I'm in the tub, and my husband starts taking photos, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I want to remember this moment because our daughter is coming. And I remember then I was having contractions in the tub. It made no difference being in hot water and relaxing and all of that. People will say laboring in the tub is easier. For me, it was not. It was just as painful when the contractions would come on. But looking back at those photos after we had our daughter, I like could cry, because that was really the moment that we were like, all right, it's time, she's coming. So we call my uncle, and we drop the dogs off on the way, which was another stupid thing. I was in so much pain. I was like screaming the whole car ride, but I'm very controlling when it comes to my dogs. They are my children. They really are. And I wanted to drop them off where they were going to be staying, and my uncle lives right by the hospital, like on the same road. So I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I kissed them, and I was actually crying on the way. If you guys watch the video, you see like I'm emotional about my dogs. And I just felt bad that they didn't know what was going on. Mom's screaming at home, then she's screaming in the car, now they're going to sleep somewhere else. They were probably like, what is going on? And I'm just sitting there holding on to the car, like shaking and screaming, like, I gotta get to the hospital, I gotta get to the hospital. So we finally get to the hospital, and because of COVID, it's not exactly the entering the hospital in a lot of pain experience that I would have liked. So my husband pulls up in front and doesn't even shut the car off, because at this point I'm like, oh my god, I think the baby might be coming. Like, I was in, at this point, past excruciating pain. And at this point I needed help. I couldn't even walk myself. I wanted to crawl, but obviously you can't crawl at the hospital. Like, I had to stand up. I had to get my temperature taken because of COVID, and all I wanted was to hold on to my husband, like hold on to the person that loves me and is taking care of me. And I didn't know anybody else there, and I was scared and vulnerable, and they sent me up in the elevator by myself to go find my room. And I just started crying and losing it, just like, I need my husband. Like, I need somebody that I know and that I can hold on to. And they sent me up in the elevator completely by myself, and I was terrified, guys. Like, it felt like the longest elevator ride of my life. And it's not like when I got out of the elevator, people were like, oh my god, okay, you're here, you're in labor, you're having contractions, it's okay, we're gonna walk you to your room. It was like I got out of the elevator and everybody was just like working and going about their life. And I was just scared. Like, I was just like, hi, I think I'm having a baby. Like, I don't know what's happening. And they were like, a little bit rude, not gonna lie. And they're like, well, you have to get checked for COVID before your husband can come up. They let me have my husband on FaceTime. They don't put you into the labor and delivery rooms until they know if you're actually in labor. So they have to see if you're dilated, and they have to check you for COVID. Once you pass your COVID test and it's negative, then they'll send your partner up. But in the beginning, you have to do those two things by yourself. And I swear, I mean, nobody likes getting checked to see if they're dilated, but I was just in so much pain having contractions. I was just like, okay, can I let the contraction pass before you check? And she was just really rude and just shoved her fingers up there, and I was screaming, and my husband was on FaceTime and he was screaming like, what's happening? And yeah, it started off a little rocky. He was like, what are you doing to her? And I was like, what's happening? And she was just really rough. And then she was like really happy afterwards and was like, good job, mama, you're 4.5 centimeters dilated, you did it, you're here now, you're checked in, you're in labor. So then they checked me for COVID, and that was really painful. I don't like things up my nose. I mean, most people don't, and they go really far back. It's like a wire kind of thing, and it goes really far back, and I'm having contractions, so I'm screaming. Like, imagine getting checked for COVID and having things up your nose as you're going through the most painful thing you're probably gonna go through in life. Like, childbirth is not a walk in the park. So I'm screaming. I don't know a single person around me. I'm in a room that is not really a room. It had like boxes in it and like stuff on the floor and just like a random little bed. And they were just had me there just to see if I had COVID. And I was just scared. Like there was like a flickering light. It was a little bit creepy. And I just wanted my husband, and I was not getting any answers when he was coming up and if I passed the COVID test or anything like that. So then after I take the test, I'm like, okay, good. Can he come up? And they're like, it takes 2 hours to know the results. Now I'm sitting there like crying, talking to him on FaceTime. Like I just want him. I just want to hold somebody's hand. And when I was having contractions, the first nurse I had zero sympathy. She was just like staring at me. And I'm like, oh my God, they're really bad. They're really bad. And she would just like stare at me or just like leave the room. Then another nurse came in, and when I would have contractions, she just like grabbed my hand and was like, you got this, and started coaching me through it. And then things started getting better for me. And then the time passed so fast. When I got my COVID results, she read them to me and was like, they're negative, you're fine. Hubby's coming up right now. And she was so cool. She took my pain away. It felt like, even though I was in pain looking back, I just remember her looking at me and holding my hand and just being like, breathe, Sam, you got this. She was just like that angel, that person I needed in the moment. Then my husband came up, and my husband came up while I was having a contraction, and I just remember everything went black, and I just grabbed him and he hugged me, and I was like starting to cry. And he brought in all my stuff, and I changed into my hospital gown. I actually brought my own hospital gown and my own blanket, and he just wrapped me in it. And him and the nice nurse, we'll just call her nice nurse, were just coaching me through the contractions. And then finally they were like, you know what, if you want to get an epidural, you should get it now. So going back to what I said before, I live a holistic life, but I always tell you guys, I live 80-20. 80% of my life is healthy food, organic food, and then 20% I'll have food that is not healthy. And that's just how I live my life. And I know so many other health people that live their life like that, and I find it so inspiring. Just because you might be somebody that tries to do things the natural way or the holistic way doesn't mean you can't get the epidural. The reason why I'm even talking about this is because so many people said to me, I really want to get the epidural, but I feel judged or this or that. I said it in the video, I don't even know what I was talking about, but I was like, don't, after I got the epidural, I was like, don't be a hero, get the epidural. They come in, the anesthesiologist comes in, and I watched so many videos on epidurals, and either people are like, I didn't feel anything because I was having crazy contractions, or they do numb you before you get the epidural. A lot of people were asking me because they want to get it but are afraid of big needles. I'm also afraid of needles. I don't even like getting the IV, guys. Like, I'm afraid. I don't like the pinch feel. So, I mean, who does? But yeah, so the anesthesiologist comes in. I watch so many videos on YouTube on getting an epidural, and they're always like, sit still, hunch over, this and that. So I said to him, okay, I'm about to have a contraction. I can feel it. Like, my stomach would start to tighten, and then it would get really, really painful. So I always knew when they were coming on, it would like start to tighten, and then ouch. I'm going to tell you when the pain goes away and then stick it in. He was like, no, I want to give the epidural to you while you're having a contraction. So I was like, okay, this sounds risky. I might move and might have some long-term effects because of this, but okay. So I hunch over, he numbs my back, which just felt like a prickly feel, and then he puts in the epidural right when I'm having a contraction. Did not feel a thing, guys. I thought I was gonna go completely numb and not be able to feel my legs or move them and just have like limp legs. Like, that's just what I thought. But maybe I didn't get a lot. I don't know, or if this is what's normal, but I was able to move my feet. I was actually able to kind of move my legs. Like, when they were like, okay, we need to move you from side to side, I was able to do that. I needed help, and I obviously couldn't get up and go to the bathroom, but everything else I could kind of like move. And that really helped because I'm super claustrophobic. And that was one of my biggest worries is, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to feel my legs and I'm gonna be like dead in a bed. Like, that's just what I thought I was gonna feel like literally just laying there like half dead. After I got the epidural, they shut off the lights and were like, all right, you and your husband should go to bed now because you're gonna have a big day tomorrow. I couldn't believe that. I was like, wait, are you sure? Like, I'm gonna be giving birth tomorrow. Do you think the epidural will wear off or anything? And they were like, no, you'll be fine. A lot of you guys were asking from my labor and delivery video, how was I able to go to sleep that night? And it was hard because I was so nervous, and they were telling me that they thought by lunchtime tomorrow I was gonna be 10 centimeters dilated, and that I was gonna probably be giving birth at lunchtime the next day. Yeah, so keep in mind, I got to the hospital at 12, but they had to check to see if I was dilated, so maybe I got the epidural at like 3 or 4 a.m. It wasn't at 12, so it was pretty much Sunday the next day. Sunday is the day I gave birth, so you guys can follow the timeline. But yeah, so even though it feels like I went there on Saturday night, it technically was Sunday that I went to the hospital. And my husband are just sitting there talking, and we FaceTime my mom, and we FaceTime my brother and his girlfriend, and a couple of our friends we FaceTimed, and we were just so excited. We're like, she's coming. And at this point, all of my pain went away, all of the contraction pain went away, and I feel like we kind of had a romantic night, because we were looking at her bassinet that they already had ready and the blankets, and we were just like, oh my god, she's gonna be in there tomorrow, like this is crazy. Well, today, but you know, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I always think of like as in nighttime because it's dark outside. By the way, you get horrible night's sleep at the hospital because they come in, they check you, they monitor you and all of that. So they come in at around 6 or 7 and they check to see if I'm dilated, and I went from 4.5 to 7 centimeters dilated. So they were like, oh, you might be having the baby earlier than lunchtime. Okay, so this is like a total new mom and like mom brain moment. I'm interrupting the story really quick because after I got done filming, I started doing chores around the house, and I totally forgot to share one of my favorite parts of the birth, and that was how my water broke. Right before I got to 10, they said that they were gonna come in and break my water. And now me and my husband took a labor and delivery class, and I saw what they used to break the water. It looks like a sewing needle, and it looks really creepy. I heard it doesn't hurt, but it's still like not what I wanted to happen. Like I just wanted my water to just break on its own. So they called my doctor in, he got all the stuff, and then I was just laying in the bed and I was like, oh, sorry, but I'm kind of peeing myself right now. And then I could feel it was like really warm, and even though I had the epidural and I was more numb down there, like my legs and everything, I still could feel that I had no control. And I was like, wait, I think it's my water breaking. They checked, it was my water breaking. Just in the nick of time, I keep saying to my little girl, she knew exactly what to do. I'm coming out, and I want my mom to be in the least amount of pain as possible, even though apparently I wasn't gonna feel my water breaking at all anyway. We just thought the timing was insane. Me and my husband talked about it the rest of the day. We're like, wait, how weird was that? Seconds away from breaking my water. Not like, oh, in like an hour we're gonna, you know, call the doctor in. Like, he was in there ready to do it, lifted up the blanket and everything, and my water just broke on its own. So that was the only part I forgot. Now we'll get back to the story. And then my doctor came in an hour later, and I was 10, and I could not believe it. I was 10. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, like you dilated so fast. And at this point I don't feel anything, so I can see on the monitor I'm having contractions, and they would tell me like, you're having contractions, like do you feel this? And I was like, nope, I don't feel a thing. They asked me if I wanted any more medicine or anything like that, and I said no, this is good. Like, I like that I can wiggle my toes, I like that I can kind of move my legs, and I don't feel dead in a bed. Then the nice nurse that I had, they changed shifts, so she went home and a new nurse came in, and she was everything I could have needed and more in a coaching partner. She gets in there and she's like, okay, so since it's your first baby, it might take a couple hours to push. You know, we want to practice and see how you push, and she also wants to show me some ideas so that I don't tear, because I didn't want to tear and I didn't want to get an episiotomy where they cut. I just wanted to push her out as clean as possible. So she was like, okay, I want to show you how to push so that you don't tear. And basically she was saying push more through your butt instead of like, because when I first went to go push, I went ah, and like I made a noise, and she's like, no, don't make a noise, just push. Like I can't describe it, but she didn't want me like yelling or screaming or anything. She wanted me to just like push and push through my butt. So after she showed me how to push, I tried it, and she's like, okay, that was good, do it again. So I tried it again, and before I did, I said, Sam, give it your all, because I don't want to be sitting here for an hour, 2 hours. They even said it could be 3 hours with your first baby of pushing. So I said to myself, okay, I want to push her out as fast as possible, and I don't want to be here 2-3 hours, because then that's when other interventions could happen and babies can get stuck in the birth canal and then lead to a C-section if they're there too long and losing oxygen. So I just said, okay, everything's going my way, like I don't feel a thing. I told myself, and my husband would always say it on stories, and a lot of you guys would laugh, but he was like, don't worry, you're going to have a painless birth. I literally did, guys. Like I literally, even though I could move my feet, move my legs, I didn't feel a thing when I was pushing. Even when you watch the video, like I look like I'm in pain, and that's what I said in the text. Like I wasn't in pain, I was just shaking from the epidural, and I was shaking from adrenaline. Like I was so scared because I was like, my life is changing, I'm about to meet my baby, and I was nervous. And I was also nervous the epidural would wear off, because I know a lot of people that didn't feel anything and then they started pushing and felt all of the pain and felt the contraction. So I was scared that was gonna happen. I said to myself, I'm gonna push as hard as I can. So I have my mom on FaceTime coaching me, I got my favorite nurse coaching me, and I have my husband there. Everybody there going, okay, push. So that they don't bring in the doctor yet, not until the head's like coming out. So the first push was like, okay, that was pretty good, but let's see you do it again. The second push, she literally went and grabbed the doctor. She was like, oh my God, I pushed with all of my might. I was just like, like just pushing, and I was like, we're not gonna do this for 2-3 hours. We're gonna get this done in 10 minutes. So I push, she yells for my doctor, he comes in. Yeah, so I ended up pushing for 15 minutes, and out came Violet Everly Dural, my angel baby. It was crazy. Like I was not even pushing that long, and yeah, it was amazing. I didn't tear, I didn't have to get an episiotomy, and I didn't feel a thing. So that is really like my birth, like in everything that happened. And it's exactly what people say when they come out. It's love at first sight. Like I'll never forget those little eyes looking at me. The minute she came out and they put her on my chest, she like grabbed my chest with her hand and she put it on, and it was just, yeah, a really sweet moment that I have on video and that I'll cherish forever. Like literally the best day of my life. August 9th at 9:43 a.m. my baby was born, and she is literally perfect. She was born 7 pounds 1 ounce, and that's exactly the birth I wanted. I wanted supportive people around me. Even though there was a lot of ups and downs, I still look back and think I had a positive, healthy experience. So thank you for watching. I will leave my labor video down below if you want to actually see me give birth. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.